billion by 2030. I'm sorry, not billion, million. So expected cumulative, CAGR is cumulative accumulated growth rate. Cumulative accumulated growth rate, which is 6.54%. So you can see what is catching up is really clinical research. I mean, what is growing faster is clinical research, pharma, and healthcare. So hope things are clear here. What the future holds for, I mean, what the industry holds for you. Yeah. So why, as compared to clinical research, why we are growing at 10.5 and why we are expected to grow at 9.5% in the next 5-10 years is because, especially next 5 years, is because India is set to emerge as a powerhouse in early phase clinical research, particularly in phase 1 trial, where limited subjects are studied. Some 20 to 80 subjects are studied for the safety of the drug, efficacy of the drug, and all this. And the Indian Council of Medical Research strategic initiative to establish a dedicated network for phase 1 clinical trials. This has made a significant milestone and attracted, companies outside the borders of India to do their clinical research here. So Indian Council of Medical Research has created collaborations for advancing cutting-edge therapies, including CAR T-cell treatment. Don't get boggled by all these abbreviations. CAR T-cell is very routinely speaking. T-cells are immunity cells. Out of these T-cells, the CAR treatment means it modulates the T-cell. It modifies through the DNA mutation of the T-cell to target cancer cells, to identify it as enemies and kill it selectively. Cancer, as you know, is abnormal growth of abnormal cells. So these cells are able to be detected by the immune system. So it is empowering immune system of our body. Why? Identifying T cells, which are the principal fight agents, to modify itself through DNA mutation and target the cancerous cells, abnormal cells, and vaccines, while simultaneously promoting the development of indigenous molecules. So Indian Council of Medical Research are entering into crucial collaborations in these new areas. So naturally, when the government of India is committing, that brings in a lot of interest and a lot of attention from players outside. And as I told you, we are less costly and we have got a talented young people like you ready to embark on this journey to support this program. So the Indian clinical trial sector is poised for remarkable growth, as we have seen. Cell and gene therapies treating genetic disorders, mRNA-based treatments, mRNA modified RNA-based treatment, where again the RNA is modified to identify antigens, and artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data, big data analysis are going to be the cornerstones, which will be funneling the clinical research, which will be fueling the clinical research. So these are the things which are happening in clinical research. And Indian pharma market, we already discussed, exports to over 200 countries, mind you. And we are covering 50% of Africa, the most needy population in the world, and 40% of the most developed country in the world, USA. So you see where we are. We are there at this end of the spectrum, and we are there at the development of the spectrum, and meets 25% of UK medicine requirements. So we are taking care of the poor, we are taking care of the advanced community as well. And we are projected to reach, as we already saw, 2.38 crore by 2030, and they say that $450 billion by 2047. So growth is not going to come to an end after 2030. We are going to continue to grow stupendously. In 2024, growth was 8%, and in 2025, the market is supposed to grow faster at 8.2%. And we have already we are all familiar about the vaccine and India connection because of our so-called infamous corona pandemic. So India is the world's largest vaccine producer. So not only in generic drugs and finished formulations, we are also leaders in the world's, being the world's largest. We have 18. We have 18 manufacturers in the country, for almost 11 in private sector and some 4 in public sector undertaking and 4 in government facilities. So we produce nearly 60% of the world's vaccines. And our of the 8 billion vaccine manufactured and distributed across the world in 2024, half of them were manufactured in India. So our Union Health Secretary declared this very proudly in the ongoing Economic Leadership Summit at Davos. So you see 8 billion vaccine doses, number of doses of the vaccine. Each vaccine may be single dose, double dose, or triple dose. So the number of doses of 8 billion of various vaccines, half of that was from India. We should be very proud of this. And UNICEF, United Nations Children's Emergency Fund Program, it is for pediatric welfare program of WHO. It depends heavily on vaccines produced in India for its global health program. So you are strong in generics. You are strong. Generics means the raw things, unbranded medicines. We are strong in branded finished medicines. We are also strong in vaccines. And you know, the COVID pandemic, what we need to highlight here is, we all know the stories, what the government did, how the health department came across to our rescue, how the doctors worked tirelessly, and how the 2 vaccines were developed ahead of, you know, WHO projection, ahead of WHO projection. WHO projected the first vaccine of corona will happen by 2022 middle. The corona struck us in 2021 beginning, but we had a vaccine in our hands by 2021 December, some 6 months before the WHO estimate, and of which we had our vaccines in 2022, Covaxin and Covishield. So if you see, on the one hand, the healthcare industry led the fight against the coronavirus. On the other hand, it was the clinical research industry that enabled the battle by coming up with a vaccine. So, and we were able to support our neighborhood and developing world with these vaccines which we developed. So it was the strength in R&D and clinical research, and it was the strength in the manufacturing facilities that we had, that we were able to do this incredible feat. Okay, and you imagine this contrast, this which happened in 1998, some 22 years behind the schedule. I mean, looking back, the first hepatitis B vaccine was launched by a multinational company, GSK. Of course, I was part of this launch. I worked for GlaxoSmithKline. Now, I can talk about patriotism, but at that time, we were very excited to launch a state-of-the-art latest vaccine from world's largest company. We had fun in explaining all the technology to doctors because it was the first recombinant vaccine. So it was really a game-changing. The vaccination industry, which is around 3,000 crores today, was nothing when this vaccine was introduced in 1992. So this vaccine transformed the whole landscape. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that it took 7 years for India to come out with a national hepatitis B vaccine with the same technology. rDNA means again recombinant DNA. The DNA is recombined to resemble the antigen that is causing the disease, so that the body thinks, okay, there is a virus invading me, so I have to fight against it, and the immune system is triggered and antibodies are created and you are protected. So this recombinant DNA vaccine, otherwise it was all derived from blood plasma. Contamination risk was high. So it took 7 years, but here, when the COVID came, we were shoulder to shoulder with the developed world. We were shoulder to shoulder, and we had, and Covaxin is purely an Indian vaccine, which was created with Bharat Biotech in collaboration with Indian Council of Medical Research and National Institute of Virology. So India's first homemade vaccine. So here again, the strength of the research industry. It is the unsung hero. Research industry is the unsung hero of the fight against COVID pandemic. And now, Now, if you see what is happening in this sector, research and clinical development, Covaxin and hepatitis B vaccine are all things of the past. Now, what is coming here, happening now is we have produced nationally the first indigenously developed antibiotic to fight against antimicrobial resistance. It is for community-acquired bacterial pneumonia, which doesn't respond to the normal antibiotics. Okay, because resistance has happened. So, nazithromycin is the first indigenously developed antibiotic in India, brought to market under the trade name. It was launched last year, second half of last year, under the trade name of Mukaf, and it was in collaboration with Vocard Pharmaceuticals and developed by Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council, a division of the Department of Biotechnology, to address critical health challenges like antimicrobial resistance. This is 10 times more effective, broad spectrum action, superior safety. So these are the key highlights of nazithromycin. So this is one excitement which is currently happened and which is bringing pride to India. And another excitement that we are having is what we are seeing is the governments, as I told you before, the country's health or biotechnology departments, more active roles they are taking via Indian Council of Medical Research. We have signed a memorandum of agreement with industry and institutions, with pharmaceutical companies and medical colleges or so-called teaching institutions to advance first in human phase phase 1 clinical trial. That is, the first phase itself will be the test in humans. So the phase 1 clinical trial, the partnership makes a pivotal step towards establishing India's self-sufficiency in clinical development and advancing indigenous pharmaceutical agents. So these include, let us not go into these details. It is one of these collaborations is for research of a small molecule for multiple myeloma, and then partnering for Zika vaccine, which is a mosquito-borne vector disease, and a vaccine for that is being researched. And again, as we discussed earlier, CAR2 cell therapy in advancement for a new indication of chronic lymphocytic leukemia with ImmunoAct. ImmunoAct is the commercial partner here, the company. And this initiative is a crucial step towards establishing India as a leader in the critical development of pharmaceutical agents. So this is a very, very important development where Indian Council of Medical Research on behalf of Government of India has entered into this with a lot of support from the government in terms of funds and grants. And the regulatory scenario, as you know, Schedule Y puts down the things that has been observed while clinical trials are done in our country, which is almost at par with the global standards. We need permission from the drug controller, which is basic, approval from the respective independent ethics committee, which combines experts from the field, and then mandatory registration on the Indian Council of Medical Research website. Different rules of regulation are as follows: permission to conduct clinical trial, definition of clinical trials, what we tend to achieve, the primary endpoints, secondary endpoints, everything, and compensation in case of trial-related injury or death. This has been amended recently to ensure that if a clinical trial subject has affected or afflicted with some trauma or disease, they will be treated until hysterectomy is normal. Or if unfortunately the patient dies till that time, and the patient will be, not the patient, the subject will be suitably compensated. So this has been amended. We have become more responsible with more and more companies from outside India coming into clinical research, and conditions of clinical trial permission and inspection. Then registration of ethics committee. This has to be approved by a CMR. That this is the ethics committee which is going to oversee the clinical trial. And then definition of the new drugs. What we are trying to investigate, whether it's a new dosage, whether it's a new drug or new administration process, or altogether a new drug, a new molecule. So this is a regulatory scenario. So We have got all in place to ensure that things happen fairly and professionally. And then from what happens after research, clinical research, then you know that drug, when it becomes out of some, probably you said, tell an example, vaccine candidate or 37 candidates, investigators spending around $100 billion for each candidate, only one out of 38 will become successful. So imagine the money which is put in behind the research to bring out one new molecule. So commercialization, first is drug research and discovery, where all your research will not be successful. Lot of man-hours and lot of money will be put into unfortunate and defeated processes before we see success. And development, filing of new drug application, conducting phases of clinical trials as per Central Drug Standard Control Organization requirements. Then comes drug research and discovery. Then once you are discovered, you become the development, you file this application and conduct clinical trials. And once the product is passed on the clinical trials, then it is ready for commercialization. And then commercialization is done with brand names and all. We move into marketing. So here it is a commercialization stepwise. You get the regulatory approval like FDA, in India, no, Drug Council of India approval, all these approvals, European Medical Association, all these approvals are taken before, depending on
So I think you are on mute. So I think you are on mute. Sadanandan sir? I hope you're
Ma'am, sir has disconnected.